Hi there, I'm Michael Hill with Canine Chronicle TV, your host of NextGen, focusing on the next generation in the sport of purebred dogs. And I'm so excited to be joined today by my friend Remy Smith Lewis of Remys Kennels, currently in Southern California, no longer Northern California, huh?
Yeah, I miss my Bay Area roots.
Oh, we miss you too.
I miss my Oakland, but it's okay. We're excited for the new venture.
Yes, new chapters this year. That's the theme, right?
For sure.
Why don't we go back a few chapters and start how you got in dogs in the first place?
Great question. So again, very Bay Area, iconic. So in San Francisco, there is a iconic facility, Cow Palace. It's very iconic building in San Francisco Bay Area, and that is where the Golden Gate Kennel Club Dog Show is housed. It's one of the last bench shows in the country, but on top of that, it's just a very popular Bay Area thing. You always know a coworker who went to it, or anyone in the Bay. Oh yeah, I went to the one at Cow Palace. Like it's one of those things. There's always commercials on TV. There's always a billboard. So it's very popular. I had loved dogs ever since I could remember. I think like everyone else, right? Like I remember playing t-ball in the park and dropping the bat and ball to go play with the dog in the park, checking out every dog encyclopedia, all that stuff. And my mother worked with a woman who did obedience with her Labradors. And my mom told her, like, my son loves dogs. And she said, why don't you take him to this Cow Palace dog show? Like, he'll love it.
Oh,
and it was perfect. I was 9.5, 10 at that time. Simultaneously, at the same time, the San Francisco Giants had just opened up their new ballpark in McCovey Cove in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. And they used Portuguese water dogs to catch the home run balls that went over the fence.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know how it happened. I probably should try to find out the history of that. But somehow, some way, there was a team of water dogs. And these were people who did water work and conformation. And they went out on the weekends. And these home run balls that went over the fence into the cove, water dogs would go get them. It lasted for a couple of years and they had to stop because people were trying to get the ball, stuff like that.
Right.
But anyway, the breed was very popular, like at that time. So everybody was going to Golden Gate Dog Show, not only for the dog show, but to really see these Portuguese water dogs. They had done news coverage on the breed, being hypoallergenic, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So my mother took me, and I went just to see my first dog show. Kid in the candy store, like blown away.
I could get used to this.
Like this is it. Talk to every breed, again, being a bench show, which is amazing. Made my way down to the Portuguese water dog breed section. Of course, the line was long because everybody wanted to see the breed.
The celebrities.
Exactly. And it was a Portuguese water dog breeder, her husband, Tim and Lisa Hubbard, who I said, like, hey, I really want to learn how to like show dogs. Like, what do I have to do? And they introduced me to, at that time, the famous Bill McFadden. And then they introduced me to their handler, Sally George and Marcus Sally George, who had showed dogs for them. And the rest is history from there. Wow.
Yeah. When did you get your first dog?
So we had Staffy bulls, as a kid, pit bulls, and as always. And then I got my first purebred dog, AKC registered, when I was around 11, so a little bit after that we did. And actually, Springers are my original breed.
Really?
Yep, Springers are my original breed. And then I transitioned to water dogs from there.
Got it. And then how did you learn how to show and groom and kind of do the presentation side of things?
Yeah, great question. So when the Hubbards had introduced me to all the handlers, Bill and Taffy, Mark and Sally, I'm trying to remember like how that happened. I think they had introduced me and like I exchanged information. I kind of started finding out where shows were. I was scheduled to do Poop Patrol at a dog show, and Taffy, not knowing me, because I had met Bill, I had not met Taffy yet, not knowing me, drove 30 minutes out of her way, picked me up, took me to the dog show. And then that kind of started that friendship. I met Mark and Sally again. They, I said like, hey, I want to be an assistant. How does this work? I started going to their kennel on the weekends and to shows with them on the weekends. Holiday break, I would go work because they had a boarding kennel too. So I would go, to the boarding kennel and help in the boarding kennel. And that was really the solid foundation of like how to show and groom and take care of animals, the husbandry part of it, from that standpoint.
And I know for you, breeding is the real passion, right? Yeah. Let's talk about who was influential and how that started, which dogs you use, and how your program has progressed from there.
Yeah, this is something I think about quite a bit. So when I was really younger, I think I wanted to be a handler when I was like really younger. But then I kind of realized that like, no, my parents were really hard on me about school and like I had to go to school. And so when I kind of chased my academic career more and more and my profession, that was where I wanted to focus on. And breeding did become more of a passion for me. I will say that I have been very blessed to get into the breed at a very exciting time. I think that our breed is in fabulous shape. We've had some really exciting dogs. And I think there's been some great breeders before me that have helped me get to where I am today. And I consider myself still a very new young breeder, still learning day to day. So I think it was a combination of that and then a combination of some of the handler background, being an assistant, that I think cultivated this aspirations to be a breeder. And that I put all together to create what I do now. We talk about dogs and people. Again, like I said, I think the breed was in a very exciting shape. So rewind a little bit. When Mark and Sally retired, I inherited a client of theirs, Julie Conger, who's been my co-breeder, godmother for a very long time. She had a beautiful bitch that she wanted to breed one more time. And she said, Remy, you pick the stud dog. At that time, Ladybug was being shown, the beautiful water dog bitch that Amy Rutherford showed. And Ladybug had a little brother named Dickie, who was a beautiful dog, but he was shown first and then Ladybug came after. So I said, well, let's breed to Dickie. This bitch, there's some good traits. The pedigrees looked well. Like, let's go for it. Kathy Dugan and Mike Dugan lived an hour from us. It just made the most sense. That produced my foundation bitch, who I finished pretty quickly, won the bred by at Eukanuba when it was called that, in Florida. Very good success. And then, of course, you had Matisse come along, who, again, I cannot give that dog enough credit. I think Ladybug paved the breed, like got us out of the woods. And then I think Matisse scored the touchdown for the
skyrocket.
Yeah. And again, I have to pay homage to the breeders who made that happen for those two dogs. I then was able to get, of course, a puppy from when the two were bred together, Manly. That, again, of course, does help my breeding program immensely, and kind of where I'm at today. But again, I just go back and say, like, I think the breed was in a very great shape when I inherited them. I've been around them for a long time, really since I got into dogs. I've been around them, watching the breed from temperaments evolve, on and on. And so I've just been very, very blessed from that standpoint.
I love that. What are some things that you're focusing on now on bringing into your breeding program as you're continuing off this point where it is now?
Yeah, I think for me, I try to just remember I think there's one line in the breed standard that just sticks out in my head, and I just think about that all the time. And it's in the history kind of part of the breed standard, but it states something to the effect of like a medium-built, robust dog that needs to do a full days of work in and out of the water. Like that's the line that
what they do. Yeah.
Right. And when you think about some of the dogs that we maybe have today and what I try to hold is a medium-built dog. I think sometimes we've gotten a little bit big on dogs, and I'm guilty of it too. I've had some that are a little bit bigger, and so I need to kind of take a step back. I think also dogs that are the proper length of body and the proper length of leg, short, strong loin. I'll never forget, I had a conversation with Mrs. Packard Trotter about this one time, about the loin and how important the loin is as a generator to produce that energy in a breed that has to swim, right? Like they have to go. And so they need that short, strong loin. as their engine to produce this energy to move. So those are things that I really try to focus on. Bone, of course, underjaw. Yeah, those are just kind of some of the things.
And they have a very specific coat type too, right?
Yeah, and the coat, I mean, that's a whole nother can of worms we can get into. We have the 2 coat types, we have the 2 trims, we have the variety of colors. I don't think there's another breed in the working group, or I don't know if I really have to look at it, that has as many variations as we do, right?
Yeah.
And then in size, right? Like what do you do when you have like a 17-inch bitch and a 23-inch dog in the ring? One's brown, one's black, one's white.
Right.
Like it's all over the place.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It can be very hard. I think sometimes. But I try to nail a certain look and style and try to consistently to stick with that.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
What, just going back a little bit more personally, what are some of the most impactful moments or memories that you've had in dogs, either a win or just a connection, a relationship?
Yeah. I think like win wise, there's been some, but I think kind of taking a step back a little bit, I think when I got into showing dogs in the breed, it was a very interesting, cool time, right? So, I mean, this is like late 90s. There was some beautiful specials here in California being shown. Amy Rutherford would have something of Kathy Dugan or Chuck Teasley. Eddie and Leslie Boys would have something of Nadine Hunter. Mark and Tyler would have something of Lorraine Carver, Lisa Hubbard. Bill and Taffy had something of Dr. Smith and Cheryl Smith. I mean, these were like great dog people, like hardcore terrier people, all who had these working dogs. And they were just like in impeccable condition. At that time, retriever trim was king, all put down in the 9s in these retriever trims. And it was like something to see. And they all would win, like different ones would win. There wasn't one winner every day. And the breed, I think, was still getting kind of recognized. They were organized in 1983, but I think like the early 90s, late 90s, I'm sorry, like this, it was still a newer breed. I mean, we still are a newer breed, but still newer, but just like the depth of competition at those times, great dog people who were very embedded in their handlers' their breeders' breeding programs. So it just produced this quality of dogs again. And I go back to saying, like, I inherited, I think, all of that, right? Like that. Right. So I think I'm blessed because of all the hard work that those breeders and those handlers who I worked for and learned from, breeders who I acquired dogs from, has bubbled up to what I do today. So that's kind of iconic. Winning the national specialty, of course, was can't beat it. I mean, it was.
You had the breed at the Garden too.
Won the breed at the Garden under a dog that I helped co-breed with Julie, so that was very exciting. That was of course very cool. Winning the breed in Florida, the group in Florida. That was very exciting. And that was kind of cool too, because in that Best in Show lineup, there was quite a few young breeder owner handlers in that lineup. And so that was really, really cool to look down the line and see the, young folks who were, Susie with Irish Setter was in there. I was in there, and there was someone else, like, I can't remember, but another like younger breeder owner handler. And that was really cool.
Amazing. Yeah, totally. I think, especially with you being fortunate to have that connection of like carrying on the work of these people before you, what are some things like that they did that made that possible for you that you keep in mind when you're meeting somebody who's new to dogs?
I have to think about I don't come from a dog family. I mean, if it was not for folks just picking up the phone and talking to me, if it were not for, Tim Hubbard, like just saying like, oh, here, come meet my wife at this. Yeah. And if you've ever been to Cow Palace, it can be very congested. A lot of people, you're tired the last day. But for him saying like, and it's tribute to what kind of a nice person he is, but of just like, here, come talk to my wife. Like, I would not be where I am today. And so I try to keep that top of mind. I try to always talk to people. I try to return emails and calls. And I think sometimes it may be a waste of my time. Like it always irks me a little bit when someone will call and they're like, they want a water dog puppy. I've gone through and like, I've talked to them and we've, and then 2 months later they say, oh, I got a Labradoodle. I feel like I still have to do my part to try to educate them on why water dog is a better choice, and so forth. But I keep it all top of mind.
On that quick topic, tell us like what makes the water dog a good family companion, and who's the right kind of family for a water dog?
Yeah. I think they're a fabulous breed. I love them dearly. I really do. I think you have to get past the energy. They are a very energetic breed.
Work all day,
right, in and out of the water. And again, like I keep going back to that sun, right? Like, running on sand is not easy, there's a lot of work there. So I think a family who definitely has the level of energy, can keep up with the dog. The grooming, I think, is also very important. Having worked in boarding kennels and done some pet grooming and stuff, and I've groomed ones that are not well upkept, and it can be an hassle, having to deal with it. So I think a family who can just keep up with the energy level, the grooming, and a family who's willing to train and put work into the dog. They're a very smart breed. They will give you what you put into them.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I think as far as the grooming goes, it's the same thing as like with a doodle, where it's like there is an upkeep for that,
for sure,
non-shedding, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And have you seen that there's been an increase in interest in the breed, especially with the presidential dogs and that happening?
Yeah. I always, those who know me know that I'm a huge Obama fan, and was quite honored when they decided to get the breed. I always joke and say, I beat him to. I had them first, and then he got them. That's always my
your claim to fame.
My claim to fame over the president is I got them. But yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the breed. When you start like the pecking order of like what they have, they bump up to the list. Like just hypoallergenic dogs in general, like they bump up to the list right away. I think the general public, people necessarily don't want poodles. They don't necessarily, they're not maybe turned off by Bichon. There's certain breeds that I just think a family or something might be turned off by, and so the Portuguese water dog kind of gives
them that active working dog feel, but without the shedding. And everything that comes with that. Exactly. It's kind of unique in that way, right? Because there's really not any other option that fits those same boxes.
Yep. So, I think we bump up to the list pretty quickly.
And I think that also is an interesting point to be in that unique setting, that you can be a great source for a family to be introduced to the sport of dogs, because if they're going to you for these specific purposes, then you're also like, you're not going to find that many casual Portuguese water dog breeders around, right? So somebody like you, or any of those other people that we've mentioned, and all those great breeders in your breed are going to be a great resource for somebody to be introduced to the sport of purebred dogs. What is your thoughts on the state of the sport now, as far as vitality and openness to the next generation, as opposed to like when you got involved in the 90s?
Those who know me know I'm kind of Mr. Optimistic. I've said it before.
We need it.
These are these are our best days. I love the good old day stories and sitting around and hearing them. But these are our best of days too. As a young breeder, I think the science that we have in the industry in dogs is amazing. And so I think there are a lot of really positive things. I think the accessibility to find what you need is much easier than when I had gotten started. Just pure like internet and like just little things like that, like social media and stuff. Like I think if you want to find a mentor, you want to find a breeder, like it's much easier than when I was younger. I'm trying to think even like how I guess my mother did let me use the computer to find InfoDog, and then that got me to Show Calendar. I think that's kind of how I, got to it now that I think about it. But even just like that, I think before was harder to do. And I'm not, let me say I'm not old. I mean, Right. But I'm just trying to think of like accessibility to internet and like when I would
just do information. There's podcasts and videos like what we're doing right now that people can access, and they can also use things like FaceTime and Zoom to talk to someone and see a dog without actually being there in person.
Exactly. Nope, totally agree.
I think that's great. And I love that optimism piece, because I think that's something that, like, it's, we can all recognize that being open-minded, being a nice person is important for getting anyone involved in anything. But I think especially in a time where there is a lot to be stressed about and unsure of, like, that optimism is going to make a big difference in how things continue outside of ourselves.
Right. My mother used to always say, the world is hard enough as it is already. When you come home, I want it to be home and to be easy. And I think that has a lot to be said about dogs and dog shows, right? Like, the world for purebred dogs is hard enough kind of already with your animal rights. And, here in California, being able just to own and breed dogs, it's nearly almost illegal. And so it's hard enough for us in the regular world. When we come to a dog show and we have folks who are interested, we got to make it easy, because it's hard enough already as it is. I worked at another large tech company before my current one, and we had like a chat group of, like, you could post your pictures and whatever. And so I had just posted a picture of one of my dogs, and I mean, I got crucified of, like, you have purebred dogs. I mean, and this. These were some really intelligent folks from this company. And I could not believe how they just ripped me. So they said to say, like, purebred dog people, we have a hard time enough. So when we're at a show, when we meet people who want to do it, like, we should just be nice to each other and make it easy on one another.
Right. And as you said before, it may feel like you're wasting your time sometimes.
Right.
But when the next young 11-year-old Remy comes to a show, it makes a difference between someone who's going to turn into doing what you're doing now.
Exactly.
I love that. I think that's a great way to conclude here. And I just really appreciate you sharing your insight. It's so great to hear about those people who kind of stumble into it like you did. And it was the same for me. So I think that's great to showcase and to kind of give people as an inspiration to be mindful of that.
Definitely happy to do that.
So when new judges are trying to learn your breed priorities and what to look for in a water dog, what is it that you tell them?
Yeah, no, it's a great question again. And I go back and forth with this. I think that it is very difficult for judges to learn my breed. Again, when you have such variation in color, coat types, size,
trim,
right? Like, no other breed has it. I find that a lot of judges, they kind of go to the head and they stop there and they forget the other important things of the dog. I go back to that opening statement, right? So, like, think about this dog running on wet sand, jumping off of one boat, swimming to another boat, carrying a heavy net, and how all of that factors in. Slightly longer than tall, short, strong loin, thick base of tail. That's the rudder in the water. So pay attention to that. Breadth of muzzle and back skull, yes, are very important. But there are so many other hallmarks to the breed that I think some judges just overlook. That I think that I tell folks to pay attention to, and always just kind of go back to thinking about swimming and the work, what it's bred to do. And I think you always will be, you'll find yourself, good. And I'm guilty of it too. When we grade litters of puppies, I always just kind of like go back and say, well, this one has a bigger head. This one will be, and you have to catch yourself because there are so many other intricate parts.
Right.
The large second thigh muscle, right? Like that kicks, the water, return of upper arm, so many other components of it. So I try to stress that and stress the job that it was bred to do.
That makes total sense. That this is not just about what's the prettiest or eye-catching or silhouette, but it's about a real functional machine that has to be going all day long.
Right. Exactly.
And in the water.
Exact water, right? Like that's a whole other kind of worms. Swimming, running on sand, jumping off of a boat. And these waters were not like little lakes. I mean, this was the Atlantic Ocean. It was cold, big waves. I mean, it's
not a pool.
Exactly. So it was real, real work there. So, I kind of preach those things. And if you look at our breed compared to the other working breeds, we're still the baby of the working group, when you kind of look at them. Like, how many Best in Show winning boxers and Dobermans and Great Danes have we had versus water dogs, right? So it put it in perspective from that standpoint.
But that is a great point, though, too, that even though it is new, there's a lot of opportunity in that breed.
Right. Exactly. And we've been blessed to have some really, really great ones. So soon, of course, the Matisse, who, again, I can't say enough about that dog and the folks behind him. It was incredible for any breed to have him, and he's been exceptional as a stud dog.
Right.
And again, homage to Ladybug, who I think, like I said, got the breed, and then have him take it home. And so really exciting.
It's a hell of a place to start out, right?
I agree.
Always great to see you, Remy. Thanks for sharing with us.
Give San Francisco a hug for me.
Always. Thanks so much.